Hey guys, so several things real fast. First of all, I'm sorry about the fan. I'm sure you guys can hear it, but it is extremely hot in here right now, so that's going to stay on, especially since I've been like running around my room for the past like at least half an hour, so like I'm sweating right now and that's staying on no matter how loud it is, and I'm sorry. But this book is going to be the book Scavenger Hunt, which I've been wanting to do for a really long time, but I had to wait till I got home because I had like none of my books at school. And so that is also, you can probably see how messy my room is in the background. So that's for two reasons. One, I just got home 2 days ago. All of my luggage is still out, and also I've been running around grabbing books for the past like half an hour, probably more than half an hour. It took me a while because I've shown my room in a few videos and you can kind of see it in the background that I don't have enough bookshelves for all of my books, and so they're just wherever I can find, or wherever I can fit them, and that makes it really hard to find them, which is why I found all of the books for this scavenger hunt before I filmed. It took me forever, and in a lot of cases there are probably better books to fit these, but I went with what I found first because it was really hard to find books. I had one category in particular that I really wanted the book, and it took me forever to find it. And I almost forgot to mention, I'm going to have the video from where I got this in the description, and basically what it is it has a list of categories kind of, and you have to find a book on your bookshelves that fit that category. So the first one is find an author's name or title with the letter Z in it, and this actually ended up being a lot more difficult than I thought it would be. Like, Z is not the most common letter, but I felt like I could find one, and I finally did, but it's not. Well, I'll just show you. It's the Twilight Saga Breaking Dawn Part 1, the like movie companion. It's written by Mark Cotta-Vaz. I'm sure I have another book somewhere written by someone with a Z in their name, but I could not find one, and this was the first one I found. So this is kind of embarrassing, but I own all of these. I also own the Hunger Games one. I think there's a Host one out that I really want, but I just have, like, I've always been really fascinated by, like, filmmaking, and I'm not a huge Twilight fan anymore. I used to be, but, like, I still really like these because I like seeing how the movies are made and stuff. And it was the only thing I could find with a Z were all of these books, because they're all written by the same guy, the Twilight ones, not the other. The next thing was find a classic, and this was really easy because it was sitting right next to me when I read this, but Wuthering Heights by Emily Bronte. It was the first one sitting there, which is why I grabbed this one as opposed to like another classic book. But this is one of my favorites. I have a very strong love-hate relationship with this book. I hate all of the characters in this book, like absolutely despise them, but I love the story. Like, I got so into it when I was reading it, even though I hated everyone in the book. But I really love this book. The next category is find a book with a key on it, and I immediately went for Lock and Key by Sarah Dessen. As you can see, there's a key in her hand. This is one of my favorite Sarah Dessen books. I love this book. I love all of Sarah Dessen's books, but this is probably like my third favorite out of all of her books. So yeah. Next was find something on your bookshelf that's not a book, and I have a lot of things on my bookshelves and dresser and wherever my books are scattered, but I went with this, and I don't know how well you can see it. I'm scared it's going to break. So as you can see, it has Japanese on it. My uncle is a retired Marine, and he was stationed in Japan for a really long time, and I got this from Japan, and it's really pretty, and it just sits like up on my top shelf. Next is find the oldest book on your bookshelf, and this is a new edition, and I'm just going to go with this because my sister bought this at a used, like, it wasn't a used bookstore, it was some antique shop or something she was in, and she saw it and thought of me. I'm not really entirely sure why. You can see how torn up it is. It was sitting on my desk when I came home from school. It's a dictionary, a really old dictionary. It's upside down. I'm not sure how old, but I can tell that it's extremely old. So hold on. Okay, it's from the 1950s, which isn't that old. It looks older than that because of how torn up it is, but I don't really have a lot of old books. I have one book that may be as old as this, which is in much, much better condition. And then I have a I have old Girl Scout handbooks, because I used to be a Girl Scout and I found Girl Scout handbooks at a used bookstore and got them because I thought it was the coolest thing ever. And that's probably from the 1950s too, so that's probably how old all of my oldest books are. Next category is find a book with a girl on it, and this is probably the easiest one since I have a million books with girls on them. In fact, a bunch of these that I'm showing you have girls on them. This was the first one that I picked up. It's Victoria and the Rogue by Meg Cabot. This was a really cute book. I really like this book. The next was find a book with an animal in it, and I have several books with animals in it. This was the first one I saw because it actually has an animal on the cover. It's Dawn Undercover by Anna Dale. You can see there's a little dog on the cover, and I think there's a cat in the book too. It's been like a year since I've read this, and it was like I read it really fast. It's middle grade, I think, and it was really like short and like not to be taken seriously kind of book, and yeah, it has a dog in it, and I think it has a cat in it, although I can't remember exactly what happens. But find a book with a male protagonist, and again, this was sitting right next to me, so it's the first one I grabbed. It's The Giver by Lois Lowry. As a lot of these are my favorite books. My favorite books tend to be the books that are out in my room, and my like least favorite ones are shoved in the closet because I pull out the ones I like more. So a lot of these are the books that I just grabbed because they were there, but they're also like some of my favorites. So I read this in like 6th grade for school and loved it, so my dad gave me his copy, and yeah, I love this book, and it is narrated by a boy. So the next is find a book with only words on it, and I have no idea if this counts, but it was the first thing I found. Will Grayson by John Green and David Levithan, because it has this obviously, but I didn't know if that counted because it's not really a picture, it's just lights, I think is what it is. And so yeah, I'm sure I have another book that is just words, but I couldn't find it and I was searching for a long time. So I'm just gonna go with this one, and I love this book. The next category is find a book with illustrations in it, and I immediately went towards Ouran. This is Ouran High School Host Club by Bisco Hattori, and I could be saying that wrong. It's the 5th volume because that was the first one I found. It's manga, meaning it's like a graphic novel, and so it has illustrations. I have Avatar comic books, and I have the Twilight graphic novel, but I'm not like a huge graphic novel person. I want to get more into manga. This is the only manga series I have at the moment. I have more I want to buy, I just haven't gotten around to it. But yeah, I really love this series. The next was find a book with gold lettering, and I picked this one. It's First Families by Bonnie Angelo because this is in gold, and this was the only thing I could find. It's all about the first families of the presidents of the United States. This is one of the books I bought when I was in Washington, D.C. like 4 years ago now, which is one of my favorite trips ever because I love Washington, D.C. and I bought so many books on like the American government and history and everything, and this is one of those books. For Find a Diary, True or Fictional, the first book that I kind of like went to pull out was Anne Frank's diary, but then I remembered that I had this book, and so I decided to go with it because it's less well known. It's one of the Dear America books. It's Voyage on the Great Titanic, the diary of Margaret Ann Brady, and obviously this is fictional. It makes me sad because, I mean, it's the Titanic. Nothing with the Titanic ever ends happily. I actually bought this at the Titanic Museum in Branson, Missouri, because as you can tell from the Washington, D.C. books and this book, the only thing I ever buy on vacation is maybe like one t-shirt and then books. So yeah, I remember, I haven't read this in years. I was in like, I don't know, it's been like at least 3 years since I've read this, probably longer, but I remember it being really cute. So, and it looks like it's a really easy book to read. It was stuffed in my closet with like on the shelf that's all my little kid books, which means it's been a really long time since I've read this because all of those are all my books that I've had since like elementary school. For the find a book written by someone with a common name, I was really surprised I didn't have like any Smiths or anything like that, like any of the stereotypical common names. I went with Looking for Alaska by John Green because I was looking through all of my books, and Green was like the most common last name that I could find amongst all of the authors that I could find, and I think Green's a really common name. I know a ton of people with the last name Green, so I went with that, and this is an amazing book. So yeah, I'm really surprised. I have to have a book of, like, written by someone with, like, a really stereotypically common name, but I could not find one, and I probably searched for that one the longest out of all of these categories. Find a book that has a close-up of something. I chose Uglies by Scott Westerfeld. These have new covers now, and I actually have this book in the new cover signed by Scott Westerfeld, and then but this is the original cover, which has a close-up of her face. It's on the back too. And yeah, so I have all of these covers, and then I have this book in the new cover. The new cover is kind of a close-up as well. It's like of a girl with a sheet over her head, and then someone's like hands over the sheet. If that sounds really like dark, a girl with a sheet over her head, but if you've read the book, it kind of makes sense. For find a book on your shelf that takes place in the earliest time period, I immediately went for The Witch of Blackbird Pond by Elizabeth George Spear. This may not be the earliest time period on my shelf. I have a lot of historical fiction, but this is one of my absolute favorite books of all time, which I've said about a lot of these books. And I just really love this book, and it's definitely, it takes place in the 1600s, so it definitely is one of the earliest on my bookshelf, even if it isn't the earliest. And I just really love this book. I read it in 8th grade for school, like I did with The Giver, and I think that's the only book here I read for school. I kind of read Wuthering Heights for school, but it was on my own. And yeah, I just really love this book. The next category was find a hardcover book without a jacket, and this came off of my elementary school bookshelf like the diary one did. It's Clara Barton and the American Red Cross. It's like just a book. It's a Heroes of America book, so it's a book just about her life. I remember I read this a lot as a kid. I was really, you can see how easy this book is. I know, like, I took it to school with me and read when we had to, like, read books on our own, like, for quiet time or whatever. Oh. And I was really, really fascinated with her for a really long time after reading this book, and I actually think this book plays a big part in why I wanted to be a nurse for like 2 or 3 years before I realized I was terrified of blood and needles and that would never work. The next category is a teal or turquoise book, and I'm really bad at shades of colors like that. So I think this would be considered kind of teal or turquoise. Fault in Our Stars by John Green. This is the third John Green book, if we include Will Grayson, so you can tell that I obviously really like him. But they just all fit, so yeah, this was the only, like, even remotely bluish book I could find, other than Order of the Phoenix, which I don't really think counts as teal or turquoise. I'm sure I have, I mean, there's this one's blue too, but I just pulled that out. So, and this I feel as if this is turquoise, but I could be wrong, because like I said, I'm really bad with colors like that. But I'm thinking of what the actual gemstone turquoise looks like, and I feel it's similar, right? We're going to say that it's similar. The next was supposed to be a book with stars on it, and I read this and I was like, oh god, I'm never going to be able to find a book with stars on it because I don't think I own any. And then I just like, okay, I'll just look through them really fast, and I was prepared to not have a book with stars on it, and then I pulled out The Sacred Oath by D.C. Grace, and there are stars on this book, so I wasn't expecting that when I pulled it out. But this is, I'm not sure if it's self-published. No, it's not, I don't think. But it's like not a really well-known book. The only reason I have this book, this is going to be somewhat embarrassing to admit, but Kiowa Gordon, who plays Embry in the Twilight series, I love the wolves. Like, that's my favorite part of Twilight. I hate all of the vampires. He was going to be in this movie, and I don't know if this movie is happening anymore, but that's why I bought this book. And it was a good book. There were a lot of, like, problems with it, but I really like it, and it's actually weird because the wolf pack in this book is extremely similar to the wolf pack in Twilight. There's some differences, but it's extremely similar. They're Native American, and it's like their tribe, and they have an alpha, and they like turn whenever they want to. Like, it's really similar to the wolves in Twilight, and it's kind of weird. But there's also like a lot of other aspects to it that aren't in Twilight. It was interesting. So yeah, like the main character in here is a witch, and there aren't witches in Twilight. But it was an interesting book, and I think there's supposed to be another one, but I haven't heard anything about it, so. And the author apparently is from Indiana, somewhere not like really close to me, because she was tweeting about going to Holiday World, which is the theme park like right near where I live, and I was like, dude, that's like right near my house, and I tweeted her back, and so she doesn't live like extremely close to me, but she lives fairly close to me. I mean, at least as close as John Green does. John Green is in Indianapolis, so that's. And the last category is a non-YA book, and a lot of these books haven't been YA, but I went for The Kryto's Trap by Michael A. Stackpole, which is part of the X-Wing series, which is a Star Wars book, because this is the third one. This is the one I just read. I've gotten really into this series, and I've become obsessed with them. So that is all. I hope I didn't ramble too much. I'm probably going to look at how long this video is and like cry because it's so long. But if any of you want to do this and leave me this video response, that's fine. And I would love to watch them, and I will see you guys later. Bye. Also, I was just getting ready to get up, and then I realized that as soon as I get up, I have to start putting these books back. That's not going to be fun because this is going to be probably a bigger mess than me getting them out, finding places to put them. Yay.